koutou e te whānau. Welcome to, I couldn't even see myself on screen because I had something in front of me. So I just kind of guessed when I'd be able to go then. Hopefully I nailed that. Kia ora koutou e te whānau. Welcome to another episode of Big Hairy News. Kia ora Chuki. Sorry, that's Chewy and Cookie together. I don't know why I said Chuki, but I was mostly thinking about pākaka. Pākaka for you today. I thought your title would be Pākaka after last night's conversation.
Yes. No, that was fun to find out from last night. I also need to point out, because it was mentioned the other night, look, the flag is out of my car boot and back where it should be.
Good.
On a day where it's estimated now it's 54,000 Palestinians have been killed by the Israelis in Gaza. I think that's super conservative, personally.
Yeah, same. I'm still actually organising a couple of things while we go here, so I'm just sort of not watching you, so we'll just talk. And we won't go heavily into depth with this tonight, but we were talking about where would Piers Morgan land after a few days, his 90-day trial.
Yep.
We won't play much, but I am going to play a little bit, only because we were wondering, right? We were wondering about it. So
was the big question.
Yeah, and he seems to have taken it all on board, and there were some conversations today where it was 2 against 1, except he was on the Palestinian 2 against the one Zionist thing. So, yeah, look, we said, people who have missed this at Piers Morgan and others seem to have. In fact, there's a little bit of what do you call it when someone does something disingenuously? There's a little bit of suspicion that a lot of these people and a lot of these countries are just finally turning the key now, because even they know you can't deny it. And even though they might still want to be behind the Israeli stuff, they just know you can't deny it anymore. And it's going to go so much worse. Someone said, there was a report I saw today that said Gaza will be uninhabitable for 2 decades. So they've kind of won. Norm Finkelstein, I think that's his name. I've been actually talked to him a couple of times because he's a contact through Marilyn Garson, and he was on with Piers, and it was a really interesting conversation. We're not going to play it. We're not doing it as a topic tonight because we've got too much other stuff. But I'm interested to show you guys where he is at, because we were wondering that.
Why do we have too much stuff tonight, Pat?
Well, because last night we did nothing. Well, not nothing. We had a fantastic show last night. You go.
For the people that missed it, we had Debbie Naldangapaka and Rawiri on the show for what we assumed was 20 to 30 minutes.
Oh, maybe 30 to 40, but
maybe a little bit more. They rode with us for the full 90-minute hour, and it just felt like felt like a kitchen table, round table.
Yeah.
Like party's winding down, there's a box of beers on the table, and you just end up having like a conversation with a group of friends. It was amazing. It was really, really good.
Really interesting as well. I'm just looking through some of the. I won't put it up on screen because it's not what I show, because it's my back end to YouTube. But I'm looking at some of the comments on YouTube. 2 that really stuck out. I'll see if I can find them. But one of them was, you look at these guys on the Mirai, or on Hui or something like that, one of the other programs, and the comments are just revolting. But they actually said the comments here are all really supportive and open, and it was a really interesting observation. What's happened since then is some of the crunchies have got into the commentary, and I actually have wondered, and I've wondered this before, Chewy, if the algorithms go around the people who know you, like the followers first, and then they go out to other sources as well. Because quite often when we put content out, the first half of it will be, thanks for that, like what you're doing, great, that's a good point. And then the second half of it will be all the crunchy stuff. And it's kind of happened on that today. We've had about 13,000, that episode, so not a clip, the full episode, has been seen about 13,000 times across Facebook and YouTube. Very little on Twitter, actually. And Facebook, it's done over 8,500 on Facebook. So it's fascinating where each thing drops. When we spoke to Tanya Waikato last week, one of those clips got 16,000 views on Facebook. So we often think about focusing on YouTube, and actually, for some reason, some topics really get picked up on Facebook, and that's what it was. Also, another one of the comments that came through, I'm not going to go looking for them now, I'll put them on, I basically know what it said, was like, oh, I now understand that Te Pāti Māori is not a party for Māori, it's for everybody, and they've explained it really well. Lots of commentary along the lines of, I haven't heard this conversation before. And Chewy, I mean, this is the kind of broadcasting I've always done, like whether it was the earlier podcast, you just sit around and talk, and you're great at just bouncing as well. And this is what I think that was a unique, I can even take a step back from doing, I don't know, thousands of interviews in my career and go, that was a unique one last night. So, and lots of really commentary from people going, I wish I had been there. I wish I had seen it live, but still great. So yeah, it was cool, man.
Like I had a friend of mine, you know, when you say people go, like I get it now. I get what these guys are about now.
Yeah.
You know, you see some people, and again, we're talking Facebook comment section. So, you know, be that as it may, that see Te Pāti Māori as a racial separatist party. They love that word, or reverse apartheid, or some other thing. And I think that came really clearly through in the chat last night, that those guys have completely missed the thing. Just because they are unapologetically Māori and, you know, te tiriti centric in everything that they do, that doesn't rule out, like, they're not, like, the treaty covers all of us. We live in this country because of the treaty. That is the conversation. Some people aren't ready for that. They've already made up their own minds about what that means. Whether it's based in reality, whether they've spoken to anybody that would challenge that view, or it's just their mates down the pub and they're all nodding and going, yeah, fucking A. You know, but it's conversations like we had last night that can open up that discussion more. And show people what people are really about, rather than a sub 30-second soundbite in a news story about David Seymour.
Yeah, I found one. So what you're saying, because what really clicked with me last night as well, there's a couple of things that actually clicked with me. One was this idea that, much like the people voting against their own self-interest, when Tairāwhiti was talking about the crunchy croutons and those ones, what they're missing is that actually the government is smashing the crunchy croutons as much as they are smashing Māori. So this is the thing. And then someone's has quoted Tairāwhiti by this in our chat. A tiriti-centric Aotearoa is everyone is fed, everyone is housed, everyone is cared for, and everyone is welcome. That's what Tairāwhiti said last night, and I think that's... I mean, if you took the Māori Party out of that, and you changed the word tiriti-centric, and you just went like another word, and you gave that to anyone, who would say no to it? But because there's brownness attached to it, that's what those people are pushing back against, because they can't push back against that. You just can't.
And I think anybody, it's one of those things, anybody that's had contact with a marae, how a marae works in a community, that absolutely makes sense. Like, every time that I've been on a marae, I've been welcome, I've been fed, I've been looked after. You know, and that's yeah, we were very well looked after down south. That is well and truly fact. That all makes sense. But then the people that push back against this stuff, I wonder about their community, who's rallying around them, and they just can't see it. They haven't had that interaction with those people, or that environment, or that situation. And so that's why, just circling back, such a large free-form conversation like we had last night, I think, even with our very much on board chat, I think that quite a few people were like, this is actually quite eye-opening, because you don't get that sort of discussion with politicians just in general.
I've had a few interactions with people. When I say interactions, people have been direct messaging me and stuff through Twitter and through other places. And I have to say, there's one area of criticism that I think is really valid. The whole kind of like journalism, both sides, like, we're not journalists. So, you know, we don't do that. This is a commentary and opinions show. This is not a news journalism show, right? We don't have any need to be balanced. I think we're probably more balanced than some people who claim that they're balanced when they're really not, but we don't need to be. And to be honest, there wasn't much said there last night that I think I can say we, Chewy, disagreed with. So there wasn't a heck of a lot of pushback we required. Now, the one thing, and I thought this when it happened, Chewy, I had never heard the name Ibrahim Traore from, is it Burkina Faso? Burkina Faso. And Rawiri mentioned him a couple of times and something like, I'd rather talk to him than talk to Trump or that sort of thing. That was the first time I'd ever heard that name.
Yeah.
No idea who he is. No idea what the politics of him are. And there was a couple of people who wanted to have a crack going, you know, this guy is a dictator. He's done some horrible things. He's in Putin's pocket. And said something really interesting about the LGBT community in Burkina Faso. Now, I should say also, I haven't done a lot of research on this. I've been very busy today. I am going to look into it a bit more. But there are reports and if I'd have known this, I would have at least asked Rawiri about this. There are reports that they've criminalized homosexuality in there. Now, people in the chat, if I've got that wrong already, and it's all a big beat up and there's nothing that's truth about it, then feel free to tell me and I can address that. But I'll just bring up a story. If I had have known who he was and who that was, Burkina Faso adopts draft law to criminalise homosexuality, and it says from now on homosexuality and related practices are prohibited and punishable by law. Interim Justice Minister Idaso Rodrique Bayala said in a presidency statement this morning, for the law to come into force, it will need to pass parliamentary vote, etc., etc., etc. The one question I would have asked, remember I don't actually know anything about this guy, is there are reports that he has some unique and troubling opinions of the LGBT community. How do you marry that up? So I think it's a fair criticism that we could have asked it, but I have not 1 ounce of guilt or anything about it because I didn't know. He could have brought up any name, could have brought up the name of the third person on the moon, and if I hadn't have known it, I wouldn't have backed up or asked him a question about it. You know, so people are having a crack at that today. Then sure, accept that. Not had never heard that name before. Am not involved in that world. I spend so much time speaking it. There's people already saying it's a smear. Might be the case. But even if it's a smear, I still would have said to Rawiri, there are these reports. How do you reconcile with that? And given him the chance to say it. But so I think that was fair enough. It's a fair enough that it was a comment made, but I don't take any responsibility or it's not going to change my practice at all because you can't know what you can't know, Joey. You can't be prepared for every single point that's made all the way through. Yeah. Is saying it. It's impossible to know everything. So I understand that criticism from a sector, but I'm like, it could have been a fair question, but I'm not taking responsibility for it because you can't know everything. That's all.
Yeah, we'll bring it up with our team of researchers that live in Pat's basement, indentured fact checkers and that sort of thing. That's how we roll.
My 15-year-old. What are you looking for out there?
Probably a way out, Pat.
She's been doing poi all night and her arms are burning and she's been on the floor above me jumping. So no more jumping. That's all. Goodbye. She fell asleep on the floor.
Get back to fact checking.
Yeah, get back to fact checking. Goodbye. Go away. Go. Yeah, just before we started, there was just the stomp, and she's practicing poi. She'd been doing it for 2 hours, and her arms are burning, and she was jumping up and down with anger because she kept missing a bit. So there you go. Okay, look. There's a lot to get to today, but I do want to get to a couple of other things as well that we didn't talk about. Some bit of housekeeping here. Really want to remind. I'm going to put an order in tomorrow to our supplier of tops. So that means on Friday we'll have a whole bunch of new tops, and especially if you're involved and you want to support Women's Refuge, we don't stock the Women's Refuge colours here in the property, so we have to order those in. So as you know, we are supporting Women's Refuge for the rest of May, which is what, 3 more days? So every hoodie that is sold in the next 3 days, doesn't matter whether it's a a Women's Refuge one or a Chewy Fufu one, or a Nikki No Boats, every hoodie that is sold, we will donate one safe night to Women's Refuge. And for every 2 t-shirts that are sold, we will give one safe night, donate one safe night to Women's Refuge. The other thing is the fuck around and find out gear is in now as well. And anyone who purchases a fuck around and find out hoodie will donate a night to to a safe night, I should say, to Women's Refuge. But also we're going to throw in a 5-pack of fuck around stickers, which have a value of $22. So you basically buy a hoodie, we donate $20 to Women's Refuge, and we give you a $20 gift on top for a hoodie or a t-shirt. The t-shirt you donate half a night, but we'll still throw in a 5-pack of stickers. bhnshop.nz for all of that. And that's all up and running. All the stickers are there. We've got 8 now. Look at all those stickers, Joe. Look at them all. Look at them all. Look at them all.
So many stickers.
So many stickers. The other thing is, I want to say, I haven't said this for a while, a huge thanks to our patrons. Let's do some shout outs, shall we? I haven't done it for a couple of days. A huge thanks to Son of Wes, to Jason Smythe, to Maxine Campbell, to Anne Ryan, and to Sarah. I'll say Sarah B, that's not the name, but because there's a couple of Sarahs. We've got Sarah B, who are all new patrons in the last kind of week to bit. Also Mystery Stranger, who has upgraded their patronage. And I have to tell you something, team. I have found out that some people have re-upped being patrons. So they've been patrons in the past, and then they've re-upped to be patrons again. Now, I've discovered tonight, and I'm going to say Meg and Moriora, I think, are 2 people. They don't come on my list as new patrons because they've already been patrons before. So I finally found a few flaws in tracking you guys. So I'm going to spend a bit of time this weekend redoing the whole list just to make sure that we've got everybody on there as well. I'm not going to scroll this down any further today because, as you can see there on the bottom, there's an Auckland Patreon or patron meetup. That's for patrons only. So if you're a patron, you can get on the Patreon site and have a look at all the details. But I won't broadcast those to the world. They're just for you. But for everybody else, next Friday the 6th. Do you think, are we going to be New Zealand Radio and Podcast Awards winner at that meetup too? Do you think we will? Or do you think we won't?
Oh, it's hard to say. I'm just focusing on the fact that one of the podcasts that we up against is a disability sector podcast.
Very interesting point. Yeah, very good. Yeah.
So it's kind of.
I don't think we will.
It's like, are we worthy?
And so this is at 114 Ponsonby Road. This is 7 p.m. Friday night the 6th if you're in Auckland. It's right up the K Road end. There it is there. It's between Williamson and Richmond. I used to live on Williamson. I think there. I think that was the house I lived in as a student, when you could afford to live in central Auckland as a student. And that's 7 p.m. on Friday night. It's called The Long Room. The Long Room is what it's called. And a huge thanks to all of our patrons. If you enjoyed the show last night, or the show in general, if you've been someone who's been lurking in the background, always thinking about getting involved, patreon.com/Big Hero News. That's the stuff we really rely on. The merch is amazing. The super chats, we're so humbled and grateful for what you guys do. It's the patrons that enable us to go, hey, we should start planning for Waitangi Day next year, because that's the stuff that we know is going to be there. And the other stuff is fantastic, and we certainly use it and use it well. But that kind of comes in waves. It's the patrons who are the foundation of our planning and what we're able to do. Anything else, Chewy? Anything else from the news? Anything else for the...
No, I think you've covered everything off. Short show tonight. I'll see you all later.
Yeah, I'm just looking around, just making sure I've done everything. Oh, here's a little note. It's not that it's for tonight, but Locked Out with Craig Rennie's got an episode tomorrow morning. Sorry, I'll be out at 4 a.m. Speaking of Chewy, talking funding from the budget and the disability sector. So that's tomorrow morning. Locked Out with Craig Rennie. All right, there's a couple of super chats already. Do you want to get to those, and then I'll load up the first story?
Man. I can do that.
Thanks.
Mr. Arvids, late, bad. Peter says BHN going to be rage bait for a certain segment. Yes, that is the space that we operate in. Danger of Mouse last night was awesome. Te Pāti Māori changed my vote for the next election. That's okay. We're going to credit that. we'll take it. Pat, I want you to dress me. Can you email me about your merch, please? Love you long time. You are out of my sizes.
I think we've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew, if you've emailed us, I think I might have seen that. The thing is, this is the thing, right? Most shops, they buy like 1,000 items and they sell them over the next 4 months. We just don't have the resources to support a huge amount of product sitting there. We have to kind of not quite buy to order, but because we're doing so many blacks and so many whites at the moment, we are kind of ordering those. And so I'll go through the
and also the other races. We're doing them too.
Just the blacks and whites. I'll go through what we're short, and I'll make sure that we've got some more black hoodies and black t-shirts and white hoodies and white t-shirts. If what you're looking for is a blue, like Nikki No Boats, I'll check the emails, Andrew. Email skin, because we had a huge number of blues to do all those Nikki No Boats, and we might have gone through most of the t-shirts, and we've probably got quite a lot of hoodies left. So we'll figure that out. Okay, done. We'll work it out.
Cool. Tiffany says the reason Ibrahim is held in high regard is because he's anti-colonial and quite loud about how his country is exploited by Western colonial corporates. So Western media lie, same things they always do. Like Africa is layers and layers of colonial fuckery that continues through to this day. And that's certainly not to excuse anything about this guy. Like if he does bad shit, we call out bad shit. But it's always through the lens of Europe just went elbows deep and fucked over the entire continent. And it's taken hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And it will probably take hundreds of years to get back in control of their own continent and unfuck everything that was fucked.
Let me just say though as well, as remember, I don't know anything about this guy. I haven't done any really research, but Wikipedia usually is fairly accurate because it's a conglomeration of people, individuals and groups putting it up. And on Wikipedia, talking about LGBT rights in Burkina Faso, it says both male and female types of same-sex activity have always been legal in Burkina Faso. In July 2024, the military junta led by Ibrahim Traoré, in power since September 22nd, Burkina Faso coup d'etat, adopted an amended family code draft which would make homosexual acts illegal. However, so the code is yet to pass. So there's been talks about it, I guess is what they're saying. And again, I'm not upskilled enough. All I'm saying again is it was fair for someone to say, no, what's fair is, did you know about this? No, I didn't. Oh, okay. If you knew about it, would you have at least asked? Yes, I would have. So that's when I say some valid criticism. It's like, I guess the criticism is we're not across everything. Can I tell you a story? I remember, I think I might have told the story before. I was working for a radio station in Tauranga, and my boss there had like an announcers meeting and came out and started talking about prep. And he was talking about prep, and he was talking about the Daily Show with David Letterman and the kind of prep they do and and getting like that prep. And I didn't do it in front of people, but at the end of the meeting, I went to him and I said, look, I'll do you a deal. You supply me 22 writers like David Letterman's got, and I'll prepare like David Letterman. Do we have a deal? So anyway, anything more, Chewy?
We have $2 for the fact-checking farm that's under your house. And Nick is late and has shuffled in at the back of the class.
Yeah, sit down at the back of the class. Right, let's get into it, eh? There's something else I want to show you. I'll leave it as a treat. It's got to do with Gary Panda. I know it came to my mind because I just was about to say, I was talking to Gary in the weekend about his upcoming podcast called The Front Line with Gary Panda.
That's a good graphic.
With Gary Panda.
Strong.
Called The Front Line.
Oh, I dig this. I dig this very much.
I'm going to turn it down because it's actually not, we haven't bought the rights to the music, but we're going to.
Oh, that's good. That's so good.
Yeah. Emily is a genius. We all know that. So I was talking to Gary on Sunday morning, and we were talking about this Runit Straight thing. And I said to Gary, and I swear I said it to Gary, yeah, until someone dies doing it. Let's get into the story, shall we?
Don't do it. That's the strong message from a school principal, police and brain experts tonight after a 19-year-old died playing a tackle game based on a social media trend. Ryan Satterthwaite suffered a head injury playing a private run-it-style game in Palmerston North on Sunday. Many experts and officials have been warning about the dangers of the full-contact craze. James Fleury reports.
Two men going head-to-head at full speed in an adrenaline-fueled craze that's taken social media by storm. The high-speed run has long raised red flags for those who know all too well how a seemingly simple game can go so wrong.
From day one, we were worried about the risk to our young people with these developing brains, and the risk that participation in this type of event would have for them. There's the very immediate risk from that high-speed impact of brain injury or death.
Her worst fears realised today with the news 19-year-old Ryan Satterthwaite died in hospital on Monday night after being critically injured in an impromptu game of the social media-driven trend in Palmerston North on Sunday.
I can say it was one spectacular tackle, and yet sufficiently violent enough to give this man a fatal brain injury.
Just absolutely heartbroken, devastated for the family, devastated for the community who have lost this young man.
Ryan was a former student of Palmerston North Boys High School, along with two of his brothers. The school rector told One News they were all good fellas and he was saddened by Ryan's death. The principal among those now warning any others drawn to the trend to just not do it.
The risks are just too great. If it's not a fatal injury like in this occasion, it'll be some other sort of injury, perhaps a life-changing injury. So our young men need to just think a little bit carefully about participating in some of these events that they see on social media.
Criticism now being thrown at event organisers who weren't involved in the Sunday afternoon game but have turned the social media craze into a heavily marketed event.
I'd say that these promoters of this event have been really cynical, and they have used social media very effectively to target our young people. They have led them to believe that this is a bit of fun, that this is something they could do in their backyard.
Today's tragedy sending a clear message that it is not something you should try at home.
James.
So there's the story. A couple of thoughts. Interesting. Someone just put in the chat, I think it was my sister, broke their arm playing bull rush. I can remember when I was at school, and it was then called WWF, Jake the Snake Roberts and all those guys. And there was a trend of, clotheslining kids and stuff in schools and pile driving them, and kids were getting damaged doing that. So where is this line between sanitizing and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, obviously someone's passed away, but reality, sanitizing everything so nothing ever kind of dangerous gets shown. I guess the difference with WWF, it was actually theatre and they were trying to sell it as real, where this is real. And yeah, when I heard this yesterday, I was just like, me and Gary literally just said, until someone dies. The next day, someone dies, not from the actual sport, but for doing what kids in my years at school were doing with wrestling. They were doing pile drivers, and kids getting, I think kid got broken necks and that kind of stuff. So mimicking it. So it's just, there's other stuff I want to show you, but yeah, it's not good, eh? It's not good. And what do we do?
Oh, but me and my workmates were talking about this the other day. Is the internet hype about this Runit Straight? What they were doing in Australia was picking up pace, and it was just like, this is something that seems so horrifically dangerous. Almost immediately, it was like, this is a dumb idea, because like when you look at what it's based on, game of rugby, right? Is it you like it's more controlled. It's more controlled than this shit show. And it's just very clear that someone's taken it, hyped up the marketing. We're going to make some money out of this. That's the only thing we care about. And pumped into social media where people, kids, will pick this up. My understanding is this guy that died, it was as part of a 21st celebration or just after a 21st celebration. So alcohol's probably involved there. So even less control over what goes wrong, even less thoughts of self-preservation go on there. Like, kids do dumb shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they do. But yeah, like, people talk about bull rush and all of it, kids playing blackout games, trying to choke each other out and all of this sort of stuff. All of this happened during my schooling. But this is just something that just seems so, like, if it's not a death, it's a traumatic brain injury, or it's someone getting paralyzed or something like this. And I think when society or authorities clamp down on this and say, fucking no way, because you're going to put people in hospital, then it's going to be like, the government's cracking down. It's like, I saw a video the other day of an organised backyard boxing match.
It's not uncommon. Go to YouTube, you'll find that all over the place.
Yeah, so this was eye-opening for me. I didn't know that this sort of shit happened, and I was like, well, this is a TBI or an intensive care trip just waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Like, literally trying to box around a washing line, for fuck's sake. Like, people will do dumb shit.
What do we do? How do we, like, we played bull rush, and in fact, to be really honest with you, the difference between that Runit Straight and rugby is very rarely in rugby do you get like 30 metres of clear space to run straight at someone. In fact, that's a pretty ineffective way of getting past someone most of the time. It does happen, right? It does happen, but normally you're trying to get it past them or around them or passing it to the next person. So very rarely is it like 30 metres, one-on-one, knee on chin. That's very, very uncommon. But I can remember playing rugby at the school I went to, Sacred Heart College, and certainly in our last couple of years, we got pretty violent. And the game, it's like with teenage boys, the game was to try and hurt someone, sort of, whilst you're playing rugby. And the death that just happened could have happened anyway, if it was boys being boys and playing stupid games. It's been inspired by this. I'm putting air quotes out here when I say sport. What should I say? Event. Nonsense, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's definitely not a sport.
Yeah. And it just, I guess I'm trying to take a step back and look at the whole thing and go, it's how much of the blame, like in a court of law now, how much of the blame lies with the Runit Straight promoters for bringing this to the forefront of New Zealand teenage boys' minds. Because that's what they want to do. They want to bring it to the forefront of New Zealand teenage boys' minds because those are the ones who will watch it. Those are the ones who will stand on the sideline and go, way! So they're actively trying to put it in teenage boys' heads, and now that it's been put in these teenage boys' heads, it's resulted in a death. Then what?
Or let's be clear, Pat. Or people with a teenage boys' heads mentality.
You mean like us?
Maybe in their mid to late 20s. Like the other one that springs to mind that came in front of my eyeballs not too long ago was, have you seen competitive slapping? Great minds, Pat.
Let's have a look at this. So this is the same sort of thing.
This is so dumb.
Yeah, let's have a look. Knockdown. I'm sure there's some people who don't actually want to see that. I probably should have said Taylor's on the way.
I'm amazed that you had that teed up. That was brilliant. Just same mind, Pat.
But this is the reality. The reality is when you go and have a look at a contact sport and you look at something that's literally just trying to poleaxe the other person, then that is naturally come to mind. It's not boxing. It's not like, I'm not a huge fan of boxing, but for people who are, they'll say there's a skill to it. It's an art, moving and ducking and weaving and bobbing and that sort of stuff and getting away from punches. That's literally just standing there going, can you make my brain shuffle around in my skull, please? Which is very different.
Yeah. Absolutely. So what we need to bring back is competitive, semi-competitive, semi-organised, semi-regulated background tug of war. Tug of war is the superior. Tug of war is a real sport, and I don't know if it was just a South Canterbury thing, but when I was a teenager, there was a citywide high schools fucking tug of war tournament or something like that. It was amazing. We should do that. Or instead of slapping,
this is Switzerland versus England tug of war.
Right. So why are we not funding this? This is heaps better. You can have a pit in the middle. Oh, okay. See, they don't have the pit in the middle. That's disappointing. There's nothing happening, Pat.
Just jumping.
Are they pulling yet?
Easy. That's not the kind of language that we'll talk about here.
Are they pulling? Are they giving it a tug?
There you go.
Are they tuggers? Oh, there we go.
Here's a bunch of tuggers.
I thought Switzerland was neutral. Should they be in the middle?
Yeah, it's true. Actually.
Oh, look at this. They've got some technique going on.
Anyway, that's us.
Or another one I discovered the other day, armoured MMA. There's people doing MMA in full suits of plate armour. That is a good watch.
But see, Chu, what you've just done by saying that is basically the adult version of these guys screaming at Runit.
Runit Straight in full plate armour.
Yeah, but you know, that's not the thing, eh? You know about...
At least there's protection.
Well, it's not, though. That's what brain injuries are.
Brain injuries.
No, brain injuries. That's why it's so bad in NFL. Brain injuries are the brain smashing backwards and forwards inside the skull.
No. See, he's wearing a big metal helmet. It stops it.
This is madness. We should probably not play this because I've never seen this.
Yeah, this is absolutely going to get yanked. But yes, that's my new obsession because it's I want to see Runit Straight done in full plate armor. I want to see 150 kilo South Pacific Islander in a full suit of armor trying to get up any head of steam.
150
and then just run into another big dude in armor. It'd be fine. It'd make a hell of a noise.
Now, I know we're not minimizing the very serious story, but where are we now going to leave off this conversation with the guy dying because he's mimicking it? What do we do?
I think, and from looking in the chat, like I haven't seen this myself, but someone in the chat did mention it, that the rugby organisations have come out very strongly and said, don't fucking do this. The
Warriors, actually in the news story, all the Warriors players were obviously being coached, but like, oh, I've never heard of it. What are you talking about? What's it called? Obviously being coached, because of course.
Which is not what they've got over in Australia, where a lot of league players have been involved in it.
Well, there's a former English rugby league player who's one of the main people in Australia doing it. So yeah, it's got some people, but yeah, I don't know. Look, it's a horrible thing. Can anyone be held accountable? Probably not. What does that mean of parents of teenage boys in particular? What do we do? Dude, there was 100 times when I was a teenage boy that if something had gone 5 degrees the wrong way, dead, quadriplegic, paraplegic, loss of limbs. Honestly, I won't even say them here to make someone think about the kind of thing, but dozens of times there, but for the grace of God, So what do? You let them out there and you love them and you agree you're just taking a risk with your kid in society. Is that all you can do?
Yeah. I don't think there's a what you can put out as many PSAs to say, don't do this. It's stupid. You will get hurt. Like it's not a case of on a long enough timeline you will get hurt.
Yeah.
And I think kids at that age, like especially teenagers, they just don't have it. It'll never happen to them. This is why there is so much dumb shit in that age group, as they think that they're indestructible. So I think the people that have come up with this and marketed this should fuck off into the sunset to never be heard of again.
Slink away quietly. They should slink away quietly, thanking their lucky stars that New Zealand government doesn't allow companies to be sued by private individuals. They should slink away.
Because I absolutely think that they're culpable. I think when it comes to looking at who this appeals to, then the rugby clubs and the high schools need to get in front of it.
Yeah.
And just
Well,
really hammer home the fact that people have been talking about this thing for like less than a month, and we already have a death.
Yeah.
Like that's the timeline.
All right. Kiwi Bird, we don't endorse what Kiwi Bird says, but we'll put it out there. Can we get Seymour to play Runit against Tairāwhiti? We don't endorse that, but, that's an opinion. It's valid. Tiffany says, what about when kids were doing the
Jesus.
Hopawati? Oh, that with the finger, is it? Is it the Hopawati?
The finger and the bum bum.
Thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. At least that didn't give you brain damage. It might have made you scream a bit higher for a while. But
For some people, it might have given them brain damage.
Maybe actually. The danger of
Act
mouse
party
Runit
membership.
Straight is just effing mental. Yep, agreed. Tiffany again, can we get Rawiri and David Seymour to go 1-1 on the slaps? And Porava, can you imagine if Runit Straight was verified to cause 5,000 deaths per year and the Prime Minister supported it? I'm sure there's a hidden meaning in there between something else getting 5,000 deaths a year, which I'm not aware of. All right. So Chewy, senior doctors are on strike again.
Again?
Not nationwide.
Not a nationwide one. Okay.
But out Gizzy way, it is going down.
Here, pushed to the brink. That's how our senior medical staff are describing working conditions at Gisborne Hospital. They say the number of vacant jobs is leaving them exhausted and operating in a constant state of crisis. They are due to strike tomorrow as officials admit staffing levels at regional hospitals are challenging. Henry McMullen met some who are struggling on the front line.
No, it's already been sent.
It's a phone always on.
I have 2 phone calls come through while I'm finishing the current one.
Finding time for just a 5-minute break can be a tough ask for these Gisborne hospital workers, meeting us off-site to describe how they're stretched to the brink by staffing shortages.
And we are still at risk of having to shut down at least one of our teams for multiple weeks over this winter.
We've come close in the last few months to not having doctors to staff our service. That would mean that any woman coming to the hospital who needed an obstetrician or gynecologist acutely would not be able to have one.
Continuous work for 77.5 hours. Was on call for 72 of it and on site for about 43.
Wow.
Wow.
Weekend.
They've been struggling for years and are speaking out now as they say patients' lives are at risk.
Unfortunately, we've seen recently, we've had patients die on waiting lists for procedures that they need. We've had people who come in for care and are delayed getting transferred and have bad outcomes as well.
Always concerns over harm that can occur on wait lists, and so that's a real focus of ours, again, why we're putting in these short-term solutions, to bring in these short-term locums to support them so that we can keep the hospitals safe.
Why are we looking for short-term solutions? That's the thing I don't quite understand. This is the $50 million going to private hospitals and that kind of stuff, or private providers. Why don't we start looking for long-term? So when we get those short-term solutions and then we have another problem in 2 years from now, then what? Another short-term solution? Why aren't we looking at long-term solutions here?
I think that's a really good point. Like, we do need short-term solutions to buy us time to get to the long-term solutions. But yeah, when you're in a constant panic state, when all of your hospitals and all of your senior doctors are constantly in an emergency setting, in a panic state, in a war footing, how can you plan? Like, oh, we just want to pull you off the line to come up with a strategic plan of how we're going to solve this. I can't, because me being away from my post, because of how you've structured this, because of what you've done to the health system. If I'm away helping you solve this problem, someone will die.
Yeah. And like, almost most importantly, you should never wear that jacket standing in front of that background. Someone needs to tell the man.
I will put out that
Yep.
he is wearing a pin from that New Zealand artist Pepper Raccoon that I really like.
Oh.
I did know you can't see it in that shot. It's just out of shot, but I had that same badge.
Oh, very good. We love you more now, Chewy. Rotang says this, and I'll tell you something about the accents. Every doctor has an accent. I noticed that too. And then I read an article, and what it said in the article, it might be on one user's site, is that these doctors are escaping Trump. That's why we have quite a high number of American doctors at the moment. And I don't know whether that means, because this article seems to be saying that they've been under pressure for years. And if that's the case, maybe they left in Trump V1. But that was an article. That wasn't, because I noticed that as well. And one of them was an emergency doctor, and, you know, friend of the show, Gary, he's an emergency doctor, and he's American, and he's based in Northland. But apparently some of these guys that they're interviewing are, and it actually kind of says quite a lot, if that's the case, and I'm just reporting what I read, if that's the case, that this system is broken as it is, they are still going to stay here and fight for this rather than go home to the American system. That kind of says a lot about the American system. Right, we'll keep going.
If we can keep the surgical list going.
While there's been some recent recruitment, local doctors said last year almost half the hospital roles were vacant, a figure Te Whatu Ora disputes, with locums being relied on to fill gaps.
Really high rates to those people to come for a short period of time, which we all find frustrating, because if we could pay permanent people that money to stay here and work here.
We've got a large international recruitment program. We were looking to bring doctors in. But when you do recruit somebody from overseas...
Can I just say something that's really unrelated and unimportant? I fucking hate cutaways in the news. I fucking hate them. They're so revolting. I remember working for a radio station once at a music festival, and they interviewed us, and they want us to go, bah! And I went, nah, no, you guys, when I let the other host, if they wanted it, they could. And I was like, no, sorry, I'm not doing cutaways. It's not a fucking Family Guy.
It does take many months before they do turn up on site.
Workers want a clear and sustainable staffing plan to attract and retain good recruits, something they've been calling for in a series of letters to officials. They say the response has not been good enough.
Losing even one more colleague is going to be disastrous for a service.
Wonder if they lived in Auckland or Wellington, would they have survived that, or would that have happened? And you're not supposed to have that postcode lottery here, but we do.
Dedicated to caring for others.
That's pretty terrifying. A postcode lottery. That's a scary thought.
Now preparing to strike for a little care of their own. Henry McMullen, One News.
There you go, Chewy. So more doctors on strike. We are aware that this is a systemic problem for years. So obviously you can't blame every issue on this current government, but talking to Debbie and Tairāwhiti tomorrow night, they were pointing out a lot of the cancellations that this government has made has certainly helped, contributed to, if not are completely responsible for more patients needing to go to the emergency room, which means more possibility of patients in corridors. So I think most of the things we're seeing with this government, health included, is that yes, there are several areas where there are systemic problems for decades, or certainly for governments, plural, but these guys have poured jet fuel on a lot of those problems, making them exponentially bigger, Chewy. I feel like that's a fair thing to say.
Yes, and I think it is, we are seeing so many stress points right across our health system. Our GPs are burned out. People are, so that means that they can't get ahead of a problem before it's a real problem. There's that aspect of it, of GPs aging out, and people wanting to come into that space are looking at the people that are in there and going, this is not a life that I can fucking stand. Every GP I've seen is a burnout case. So those health problems snowball. People ignore them. They can't get an appointment for 4 weeks. So why would I make an appointment? So I'll go to an emergency room, and the problem's worse. It's more expensive to fix. Things get missed for longer. The interventions get more expensive, and nurses, our hospitals are crumbling. The senior doctors and the junior doctors are just crushed under the weights of their job because they can't get someone to help. They can't do the professional development. They are ragged. Poor decisions are made for bad reasons. A tired doctor misses something. An administrator doesn't put someone forward for specialist care because they don't have enough information to go on. That person then has an incurable problem or a very expensive problem to fix. Like, it's just the lack of long-term thinking, the lack of holistic thinking. Like, all of these individual problems are part of a problematic whole. And that's too daunting to solve.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to solve any of it.
Yeah.
And the end result of that is everybody loses faith in the health system and will turn to anybody that says they can do a better job, like private health.
Yeah.
Who are getting a nice little backhanded packet of public money to run emergency care, or to cherry pick the operations, or to do all of our radiology. All of that sort of stuff makes no sense, makes no economic sense, makes no sense for the health of this country, and it makes no sense if we're going to keep having a health system. We can't train, we can't upskill, we can't recruit. It feels like a death spiral at the moment.
Yeah. People in the chat talking about, there's been doctors here, American doctors, long before Trump, etc., etc. I agree with you, but just so you know what I was talking of, this is from the Gisborne Herald. Striking staff say Gisborne Hospital rely on US doctors amid staff shortages, and one of their bullet points is Gisborne doctor relies on US doctors escaping President Donald Trump, say senior medical officers. So, whether that was this time around or last time around, don't know. But as I said, for them to still be here fighting for this industry in its current broken state, rather than going, this is too much, I'm going home, I probably speaks more to the American system than the New Zealand system. Right, let's have a look what's in here. Oh, there we go. Yep, you were people were right in the chat. Poirava, I guess. Apologies that I didn't know it straight away. 5,000 Kiwi souls die from smoking each year and cost society 10 billion. Luxon reversed that bill, would now save 5,000 lives per year. So yeah, I get what you're saying now. I apologise that I missed it. That the government cancelled Smoke Free 2025, gave hundreds of millions of dollars to big tobacco, and 5,000 Kiwis die a year from the product that they are actively financially supporting. So imagine if, coming back to the point that was made earlier, that this Runit Straight was killing 5,000 Kiwis a year, what would they be saying about it now? Would Luxon just be going, personal responsibility, which is apparently what he said about this. Again, my apologies that you had to treat me like I'm thick and do it twice because I'm a bit thick. So I apologise. What is this? Wahiki? Short-term solutions because they don't plan long-term. The health workforce planning is a shambles. Gets changed every time we get a new government, needs to be bipartisan, but health becomes politicised. Yeah, I actually think everyone will agree with you, Wahiki, but the problem is when you've got one group saying the public sector will solve this problem, and the other group going, well, we don't want to have a profit margin between our services and the patients, so public works better, then what do you do? I mean, how do you? I mean, I'm down for bipartisan, but that sounds so ideologically different. How would there be anything? I mean, I don't know, but you're right. It would be fantastic if the governments of the day, the parties of the day, could get together on some of these things and go, okay, guys, there are some areas like health that we need to plan for the future. Let's get together in a bipartisan way and come up with some things that we're all going to support. Give and take. Maybe there's 10% around the edges that you do differently and we do differently, but let's get a core that we can all agree to, and then we all agree that whoever gets elected, that's the core we're going to go with. I kind of feel a little bit Pollyanna saying it out loud, but if you could, that'd be pretty cool.
Slight tangent, health related.
Sure.
Talk about the politicisation of health decisions. Of course, we've got Wee Simeon Brown.
Wee Simeon.
So this morning, the Professional Association for Transgender Health Aotearoa, or PATHA, published a letter signed by 300 medical bodies, community organisations, health professionals, calling on the government to allow Te Whatu Ora to publish the updated guidelines for gender-affirming healthcare in Aotearoa. So they've been doing a study.
So they're not even allowed to publish it?
Well, wait till you find out why.
Okay.
So this is basically an expert's report on best practices to do with transgender issues and that sort of thing, taken through the lens of healthcare, I would imagine. They're not allowed to publish that report. Simeon Brown doesn't want it out in the world because they're about to make some cabinet level decisions on things like puberty blockers or trans surgeries and that sort of thing. So they're making a decision before valid and critical information, expert opinion, is injected into that discussion. He has blocked Te Whatu Ora from publishing it. So there must be new research, because as you're saying it, I'm Googling and I get the guidelines for gender affirming healthcare, but it's 2018. I mean, there's a whole document there. So this is new research, I guess, is what you're saying, is it? Yes.
Okay. And the reason they're blocking it, I'm just repeating, but I'm reflecting, Chewy. The reason you say they're blocking it is because they want to make what sounds like a decision before they see the research, or before the research is acknowledged.
Will not be published until Cabinet have made their decision on restricting trans kids' rights to access healthcare.
What does that mean? Trans kids' rights. So this is the thing, right? I'm not being flippant here, but I'm just showing how stupid this argument about gender affirming care is. Every boob job, gender affirming care. They wouldn't touch that. Every time a guy gets plugs, in his head, it's gender affirming care. All these things that we go, cool, yeah, gender affirming care. You want to look more masculine. You don't want to look bald. It's gender affirming care. But when it comes to, younger people, youth, gender affirming care, no, don't think so.
Yeah, no. I'm going to read the thread that that has brought this to my attention.
Okay. Are you going to show it on the screen, or is there a reason you don't really want to?
Oh, it's on Blue Sky, so it's not the most visual thing in the world.
Okay.
These guidelines were commissioned by Health New Zealand and have gone through the standard rigorous process for guideline publication and then some. Sign off by HNZ's clinical governance group, which is standard, and the executive leadership team, which is definitely not standard, before being sent to the minister for an FYI. They were due for publication at the end of March 2025. 2 weeks prior, the Associate Minister of Health, Ducey, got an FYI. That week, an additional FYI was sent to the Minister of Health. With less than a 24-hour notice, we were informed that the publication would not go ahead, and we have not been given a date. It is our view that this is a clear case of political interference and a clinical guidance issue, as Cabinet consider restricting trans kids' rights to access health care. Puberty blockers make up a small portion of this guideline's content, which is in line with the Ministry of Health's position statement. On a more personal level, I've seen the amount of work so many people have put into this update at great personal cost for many of them. The final document is beautiful, compassionate, considered, and sorely needed. It's devastating to see it get this close, only to be stonewalled by the minister.
So what happens when they make their why isn't it leaked already? That's one question. What happens when they make their decisions and then it gets released and the released decisions contradicts what they've just said?
I mean, that's what I thought, right? It's like it's lose-lose. Like they could put this information out there and say, hey, look, this is what the people that work in healthcare think. And it runs completely contrary to the decision you want to make. But now it is, you have made a decision and it runs completely contrary to what the people that work in healthcare think. And I just, we've talked about Simeon Brown's background and beliefs before. And he has said that my personal beliefs will not interfere with my job as health minister. And I think now we have a second example of that being blatantly false. The first example being I won't change any of the laws or any of the factors around abortion when there have been cuts to abortion funding and accessibility already under his leadership.
Yeah. No, it's that's concerning. I mean, wherever you sit on the spectrum with whatever you think about this gender affirming care topic in kids, having a government block research so you can pass laws
Information.
before the research comes out, that's a huge no either way. Right, let's get to some super chats. Andrew says you can blame the issues all on national and ACT. Helen increased funding per capita as total. Key sent it down. Ardern sent it up. Luxon sent it down.
Yep.
Fair. All right. Take that. Mike says, having worked with Health NZ, the long-term plans, long-term thinking was happening under previous government, has all been shelved and gutted under the coalition of chaos. Massive redesign will take a decade though, and New Zealand public is too impatient. They're too impatient when they are needing to be patient.
And let's be clear about what this stuff means, right? When they can these big projects, and we've heard lots of stories about things that involve not just with health, but the big example that I keep on thinking is the IT upgrade for the health sector, which was massive. It was updating all of these outdated systems, linking them all together so they weren't all separate and that sort of thing. And that work, we are told, was literally weeks away from being developed at the end of a 10-year program. National shit canned it.
Yep.
Now that work's gone now. So when the government changes and they go, fuck, we really do need that IT update, it is back to square one. The money's already been spent on this 10-year project that is now useless, and now they have to start from scratch. So it is just burning a big pile of your money. And I just wish they would go, what are the financial benefits for cancelling this project? Like, there has to be a clear benefit, and there are so many things that this government has cancelled where the business case for cancelling it, or just the plain common sense for cancelling it, is absent. And it just seems to be this was developed under a different ideology or a different lens that is viewed through, and we don't want it. And we're going to say that we're saving the country money when it is blatantly false. But we're going to do it. We're going to do it fast.
And then, because like if you rip the sticker off, the plaster off quickly, apparently it doesn't hurt as much, apparently.
And we can also turn around and say, look at us doing things. We're doing things quickly. You don't necessarily want a fast government because it's chaos.
Yeah. Andrew says, no more bipartisan Labour reached across the aisle 3 times for this trash, and National removed all 3 under urgency. We step centre, they step back. Yeah, look, when Chippy was with us, he actually, I'm paraphrasing, but he literally did say that the current government's version of bipartisan is you walk into their office and they go, can you sign here and agree with us? That's how these guys consider bipartisan to work. JC, new policy proposal, 200 million to fossil fuel companies scrapped, diverted to New Zealand universities, coupled with programs to attract top international students fleeing US, plus 1,000 scholarships for local students. I'm down. Yep, down with that. All good. I also think, Chewy, one of the chatters said the other day about, how we make like about 4 cents on the dollar for when international companies come in and mine our things. This idea that someone put out there about 90% if profits go offshore, then they're taxed 90%. I'm loving that idea. Like I'm like, yeah, cool. Come to New Zealand and make yourself $1 billion, but the money stays in New Zealand.
Yeah,
because I've a lot of interest to figure out more around that idea.
Compare 2 countries when it comes to mining or fossil fuel extraction. Compare the UK with Norway. They both have access to the North Sea oil field.
Mm-hmm.
They both drill and extract there, or allow companies to drill and extract there. Norway gets far higher royalties than the UK does. And they have used those royalties to absolutely supercharge their quality of living, their electrification of transport projects, all of that sort of thing. The UK is stagnant because the same sort of thing. It's like, we need to encourage these companies to come in here, they don't get the same royalties. They think they're being successful, but again, they're being given crumbs. The conversation around mineral and fossil fuel gas extraction in Australia, it's always brought up what a huge industry it is. Absolutely, it's a huge industry. How much is that industry contributing to the Australian economy? Well, actually, it's pretty minimal. They don't pay much tax. They actually get a lot of subsidies. Right, so what the fuck is the point? Like, if they're going to make money, but we aren't, and we're going to be left with their mess, you can't just go, there's a very clear benefit for New Zealand, it's jobs, because you're going to spend more than what the jobs brought in.
Yep, no, all very interesting. Daniel says late fee was playing Warhammer, Glory to Chaos. Mike says, did everyone see the latest privatisation announced today? Christchurch-based Building Consent Approval Limited will focus on low-risk residential housing. Yeah, I did see that. Did you see that, Chewie? So basically, they want to fast track. I don't know if they use that word exactly, but make quicker the time it takes to apply for permits, get them passed, building permits and stuff. And so they're getting a private company trained up to do it. And it was quite terrifying, actually, because either the owner or the boss or one of the people in there on One News said something like, people wanted to come along and have this job and they weren't trained for it. So we trained them up and now they're trained up to be able to do it. And I'm just like, holy crap. So if anything, if this was like a team of 40-year plus builders who have been around for everything, that'd be one thing. But it sounds like they just got a tick box to see if if everything's been fulfilled that needs to be fulfilled with building consents. And I'm like, and he still said 10 days. It will still be 10 days. You can get a permit today in 10 days if it's not too busy, but the maximum is 20. So it seemed to me to be a lesser standard product, lesser quality product that might save you 2 weeks across a house which might take you 18 months to build. It's like, it reeks of warning lights to me. Warning, warning, warning. Danger of Mouse says, burning a pile of cash. Are you talking about the ferries again? Yeah. Anywho, anything you want to add before we get on to the next story?
No.
All right.
Moving on.
This is the stupidest story of the day. We've entered that phase in the show, and you are going to have to watch David Seymour get pampered. This is the latest distractionary policy from the Coalition of Chaos and the ACT Party in particular. And I'll see if you can pick out the lie. I think it's a lie. Honest held belief that there's one big whopper of a lie told in here by David Seymour. But finally, after all the regulations, hairdressers are being freed up to be the hairdressers they always wanted to be.
From July, you'll be allowed to take your dog to the hair salon.
Cost of living crisis, but you can take your dog to the hairdresser, Chewie. This is
also the third time he's announced this over the space of months and months and months.
What I mean, honestly, cost of living, laser focused on the cost of living, laser focused. Now you can have a cup of tea while they cut your hair.
Or barber and have a tea or coffee while you're getting a trim. David Seymour's given the chop to so-called 80s era rules. The change is coming after a review recommended all existing regulations for the sector be scrapped, although some are questioning how strictly they were enforced in the first place.
Yeah.
Jacob John.
So basically, the nutshell, the summation of the story is no one knew what these regs were and no one obeyed them anyway. But hey, we've got rid of them. I've just given you a bit of a clue of the lie that's about to come up.
Johnson reports.
A full scalp scrub for David Seymour.
This is a much higher standard than I've experienced in recent times.
With the sector now set to get a makeover of its own.
Most of the rules are either so silly they're ignored or so obvious they're being done anyway.
So they're ignored or they're being followed. So there's actually no reason to spend any time, effort, money, energy on doing this. We are laser focused on the cost of living, people.
Meaning absolutely no value is generated.
The scrap rules include mandates on the spacing of seats and the brightness of the lights, as well as a ban on serving drinks in cutting areas and bringing dogs into the shop. David Seymour says the changes will save the industry around $1 million a year in compliance costs And now it'll be up to the business owner to decide how they operate.
We are going to allow a dog if they can behave. If they can't behave, then not.
A beer or a wine remains off the cards for now.
If you're allowed a wee brewski while you have your head trimmed, I reckon that should be a choice you can make.
The government's set to decide whether alcohol can be served at salons later this year.
There's no firm decision to do that, but the Ministry for Regulation has said, this is crazy, just let people...
No, notice how I said that? The Ministry for Regulation said. So he's citing an expert body which he set up and is his pet project. So he's basically saying, my pet project says...
For Regulation has said, this is crazy, just let people have a drink.
The 5-month review itself cost around $500,000, but many shops weren't even aware of the rules that have now been scrapped.
Right, here comes the lie. You said it up. So what they're saying is no one knew what the rules were. Now, Chewy, if no one knows what the rules are, how many times do you think they'd talk to David Seymour about it? No one knew what the rules were. How often would people engage with David Seymour if no one knew what the rules are? Well, let's see what David Seymour says about that.
The 5-month review itself cost around $500,000, but many shops weren't even aware of the rules that have now been scrapped.
The only way that they were enforced was on a yearly registration through council. So they weren't enforced anyway. A lot of members weren't really sure of sort of how those rules were to work.
I had no clue.
Whenever I go to a salon and I ask them, what would you like? They say, get rid of the red tape and regulation.
What?
I'm calling bullshit.
Government policy by random anecdote.
Nobody knew about the rules. Nobody adhered to the rules. But every time David went to a salon, he got overwhelmed with people saying, oh, could you please get rid of this red tape and let us just cut here? Because at the moment we can't with all this red tape.
Whenever I go to a salon and I ask them, what would you like? They say, get rid of the red tape and regulation.
There are some trade-offs. There'll be no monitoring or enforcement of hygiene, sanitation or disinfection practices.
Oh, okay. That's a little bit that they left out. Did you get that, people? You know how you go into a restaurant and they've got a rating for their health, ABC. It's the same with any kind of industry where they have this sort of operation because, you know, they're touching people's heads and they've got to, guess what, from now on, part of this regulation, what they do actually get rid of. All the health conditions, all the things that public health officers would want to make sure that a place is. So cockroaches are also included with your dogs. Maybe that's why dogs weren't allowed in there because what they could bring in with them. So basically what they're doing is getting rid of all the stuff that didn't matter and nobody knew about. And then in the back of the pack, they're getting rid of all the stuff that are important to public health. Have a listen to that list again.
There are some trade-offs. There'll be no monitoring or enforcement of hygiene, sanitation or disinfection practices.
Hygiene, sanitation, disinfectant practices. So the good thing for the salons is they can just use the same comb on every single person's hair without disinfecting it because there's no more need to do that. They're not going to be checking up on this.
Officials will work with the Ministry of Health on guidance around this to manage public health risks. However, the sector says other changes are needed.
The one thing that Here & Barber really pushed for was the regulation of the individual and the qualification, and that hasn't been addressed here.
Still some gaps in an industry that's just had a big trim.
That's weird, eh? The industry is saying the one thing we did want to look at, they didn't. And the one thing they did look at was all the stuff we didn't know about and no one adhered to. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to clean our combs anymore because no one's going to be checking up, Chewy.
I can't wait to get scabies. Yeah, look, that's... What is Seymour's distraction here? Because again, he's announced this 3 fucking times. And the only reason that it's on my radar is the barber I used to go to in Wellington used to offer me a beer while they gave me a trim. Yep. And then someone from the department came around and told them that they couldn't anymore. And it just seemed to be a minimal thing. They were just like, oh, okay, we didn't know we couldn't do that liquor license. Sure. But yeah, when is it important? Is this going to unlock the true potential of the New Zealand economy? That I can apparently take my my well-behaved dog into a barber's? Why the fuck would I do that, by the way? That's mental.
You take your dog so it could do a shit in the corner, because the thing about it, when it does do a shit in the corner, the health departments aren't going to check up on it anymore because all the health stuff's been taken away as well, Chewy. That's why you take your dog.
Yeah. It's just
focused.
madness. But like, yeah, not disinfect. You don't have to disinfect your combs anymore. That's good. Oh, that's going to save so much money, just getting rid of basic cleanliness. I can't wait till Seymour's Ministry of Regulation unlocks the true potential of the New Zealand hospitality sector by getting rid of fucking health grades.
In the grander scheme of things, $500,000 for that is not a lot of money. Now, the only thing I would push back on that is we will hold this government accountable to the promises they made, right, to their own standards. And this is one of the standards they made.
We want a government that cares about how every single dollar is spent, because every single dollar the government spends is ultimately a dollar from your pocket.
Yeah. So pre-election Luxon was very, very keen for every single dollar to be looked after correctly. Post-election Luxon is obviously more than happy for $500,000 to go into something which from the outset looks like a way to get rid of health regulations. That actually looks like it's all it is that it's a way that they can get away with hairdressers and barbers not being checked up on for their health, how healthy their businesses are. That's what it looks like to me.
I cut my own hair and beard at home because I can get drunk as I want.
Doesn't your wife go, hang on. That's against regulations. You can't drink a beer while you cut your own hair.
I lock myself in the bathroom with a dog and a bottle of whiskey and I just cut my own hair. It's fine. It's how people in my family have got shit done for generations. Yeah. Can I just talk about a side issue here? I assume, like we've talked about how much the New Zealand media is under the gun. There's less people having to do more and there's just not the resources anymore. I assume at some point, like this isn't a scoop, this isn't investigative journalism. I assume David Seymour's handler rang up the news and said, David would like to tell you about this thing that he's done. And someone's gone, yeah, all right. Just completely, like, we're just going to do it. We're just going to do your promotional video that you've been up to something, you've done something. We're not going to critically look at it. We're not going to go, no thanks. We have to manage our much more limited resources to finding out actual news stories. This is a puff piece. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It means nothing. And that's why I think it's a distraction. It's like, look away. It's like, this is, if we focus on the hairdressers, maybe we'll spend a day less looking at the regulatory standards bill. It'll give us another 20 minutes to talk about something else. And as Sarah
it's a
says,
weird choice.
As Sarah says, 23,000 submissions so far. So there you go.
That's almost our entire chat. That's it. We've done that. That's us.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't worked in that area of the media. I don't know if that's a thing that they could do. The soon to be deputy prime minister's rung up and says he wants you to come down to the salon and see him get his hair washed.
Yeah.
Shall we send a team? Is there not an editor that goes, hi David, fuck off? I don't want to send a camera crew down to watch you get your hair dressed. It's weird.
Unless he was getting a back sack and crack wax, that'd be worth filming.
Which, as someone in the chat, sorry, I didn't star it because I was stunned that you said it. Maybe this is one of the benefits that would be unlocked with this lack of regulations, is that they can now recycle some of that sack back and crack wax.
Richard says you don't see a flashy hotel off New Plymouth coastline from oil and gas. Howie says, what are the new ponytail rules?
We don't know because we haven't had comment from John Key. I don't know what he's up to. We can get hold of him.
Kiwi says, yeah, I love animal and human hair in my beverage. Andrew says, David full of it, making up, saving $1 million per year to justify his trash. This is barely a week's salary in his Ministry of Ruining New Zealand for Atlas. And Peter says, the Ministry for Regulation sounds a lot like the Ministry of Administrative Affairs in Yes Minister and just as farcical.
I love Yes Minister.
Gosh, that brings back some memories. All right, let's get into the last story, shall we? The last story is probably the biggest New Zealand news story of the day, and that's what's happening with the OCR.
In other news, the Reserve Bank has cut the official cash rate.
What's that, Joey?
I just fixed my mortgage. Fuck's sake.
God damn it!
In other news, the Reserve Bank has cut the official cash rate for the 6th time in a row. It's been trimmed by 25 basis points to 3.25%, the lowest rate in years. The Finance Minister took credit, saying the government eased inflation pressure by bringing public spending under control. But ANZ's chief economist pointed out that debt is still rising, and the government hasn't addressed the economic ticking time bomb of ballooning superannuation costs. Here's political correspondent Zane Small.
The Minister for Regulation rinsing away the red tape.
It's just the idea of giving people a bit of trust.
David Seymour popped into Rodney Wayne this morning to announce sweeping cuts to regulations for hairdressers.
What the review by the Ministry for Regulation found is that most of the rules are either so silly they're ignored or so obvious they're being done anyway.
That includes mandates around the spacing of salon seats, the brightness of lights, and the ability to offer customers a refreshment.
We are taking a serious trim to the amount of pointless bureaucracy.
And he was hoping for a serious trim to the official cash rate.
If I thought getting my hair dyed with lower interest rates, I'd do it.
He didn't need to, because today's cut to the benchmark lending rate was widely expected. The Reserve Bank has lowered the OCR for the 6th time in a row to 3.25%, the lowest.
Can I just say as well, from the journalist, from the host, it's the lowest it's been in years. Well, it's not really that long ago. I mean, yeah, technically you're correct. It's 2 of those years and a bit more. It's not like since the 1980s. It kind of, the way she said it was like, it hasn't been this low since Jesus was in shorts. You know, it's like, well, you know, it was under Labour, the last term. It's not that long ago. I don't know whether it warrants a headline as you're going into the story.
It's important because this underpins our entire broken economy, our unproductive economy. Look, I just had dinner with friends. We were talking about interest rates, and we all acknowledge the fact that we always talk about it, and it's fucking boring.
Especially you're still grumpy.
40.
You're still grumpy.
Still angry about
fixing.
it.
Yeah, all right.
Since 2022.
We now have inflation back and banned, and that's partly because we've taken such a responsible approach to spending.
Or hang on, external factors, Nicola. External factors were making, so surely external factors are the result of good news. External factors? No, nothing to do with external factors. Just thinking. All right.
She fixed it globally.
Yep, everything. Oh, I've got such good goss about this. This is the budget lockup. I've got the best goss in the world about this from speaking to a wee friend of ours. I'll in the second.
Okay. The government's, I guess, lower spending contribute to your decision today?
It had a very little role to play in terms of the decision we made today.
The budget revealed last week the government found savings of $5.3 billion per year, a subject the Prime Minister touched on today during a Q&A with ANZ Chief Executive Antonia Watson.
We've got a lot of things in motion and you've actually got to bend the curve, and that's what we're doing.
Ground debt is still rising, actually, for quite a few more years. So, again, this is not exactly all the weight on the wheel turning as hard as you can. This is actually quite a gradual adjustment.
ANZ's chief economist Sharon Zollner also highlighting an economic ticking time bomb the government has not addressed.
When the boomers were 20, starting their working careers, there were 7 working age people for every 1 retired person. Now there's 3.5, or a bit over 3.5.
Wow.
So half is...
Wow. that number's terrifying. So half the number of working people for retirees as there were, that'll be 35 years ago, I guess, 40 years ago?
In fairness, Pat, this problem absolutely snuck up on everybody. Nobody knew that the demographics would work that way. Nobody's been looking at it ever, and nobody's been talking about it as a potential problem for 50 years.
So half as many working people trying to support the boomers as they go into retirement. And it's going to keep getting worse.
They should have credibly tackled the ageing population problems, because that's why nothing they're doing is being taken that seriously.
We've obviously, as a National Party, believe strongly that we should move the retirement age to 67. Every 10 years, Kiwis live another year and a bit. Obviously, that's something that politically we don't have consensus around.
New Zealand First is not keen, so the coalition government's washing its hands of that issue because only ACT and National are open to having the discussion.
There you go. Now, you go for it. If you've got anything to share on that, then I'll share the gossip about the budget lockup.
So many haircutting puns. Puns about David Seymour having a hair wash. It's a puff piece. Like,
yeah, sorry, hang on. Sorry about doing that kind of once and a half times.
That story was about something incredibly troubling that so many governments, mainly blue ones, have dropped the fucking ball on. There have been so many attempts. There are attempts to get a super fund going in the 70s. Muldoon killed it. Cost this country trillions of dollars. David Cullen tried to get one going. National have raided that piggy bank, 3 times now? They have hamstrung KiwiSaver and withdrawn support for that. That was what KiwiSaver was for, was to do some of the heavy lifting for our generations when we retire, whenever National lets us retire, because they knew that the super fund as it stood was not going to handle this. Nobody's got ahead of this problem to the degree that it needed to, and nobody protected the instruments that we tried to put up to protect it. Nobody protected them hard enough. And once again, when they talk about Kiwis are living an extra year, every fucking whatever. Some Kiwis are. Kiwis that don't have really hard jobs. Kiwis that have good access to healthcare. Kiwis that had a good start in life. Kiwis that were lucky in the genetic lottery. Certainly not Māoris, certainly not Pacific Islanders, certainly not the poor. Not important. Not the point. Christopher Luxon had a long and successful retirement. I'm sure he'll live to 110 because he's evil. He's independently wealthy, doesn't need super, he'll take it. Winston Peters, our current Deputy Prime Minister, claims super. Because the attitude from that generation is that they earned it and they paid into it.
Yeah, but that's
how they think of it like that. They paid their taxes into super. That's not how that works.
No, that's not how that works. And be really, really clear. On day one, when super was started, there was no money there to pay super. So it was the workers, the current workers, who were paying for the then retirees. And that's what it's done the whole time. So no, he hasn't paid for it. He's paid for the generation before him. But the other thing with Winston that'll stick in most people's craw is because he's basically been around in Parliament since the early 1800s. He's also entitled to all those massive perks with retirements that MPs get before. I think it was pre-94. And so he'll be creaming it. He'll be creaming it.
So yeah, I don't know what the answer is to super. I don't have that big enough of a brain, but certainly when somebody sets up a fund to try and do some of the heavy lifting, leave it the fuck alone, Nicola. Don't create a bunghole in our piggy bank to funnel money into private enterprise, the venture capital fund. No, don't do that. That's ours. You should. Oh, if they talk of raising the retirement age before they talk about means testing super, I'll be flipping cars over in the street French style. But I don't want any discussion about changing super. But means testing it should be the first one out of the gates.
Well, it's the reality is, as super is being run right now, it cannot stay run like that. So the one thing that we have as a truth is you can't keep doing it like it's being done right now. Something needs to change. They need to find more revenue to put into super for the people who are on super. That might be through taxes. That might be through other means. They either need to have some people who don't need it, not on it. That'll be means testing, or they need to keep it as it is and raise the age. There are the only thing right now we know is that the current way it's done will not survive. It is not able to go forward with half the number of people supporting the number of people who actually, what they didn't say in that, if there is there's 3.5, okay, yeah, so there'll be more people obviously because there's more people in the country. So more people are on super. That's where they get the 3.5 people per retired person from. So that's impossible to continue on that path. It's not enough money. So they have to change it. And it's just how they're going to change it. It's stupid having a conversation between MPs and parties saying we're not going to touch it, because you have to touch it. Because if you don't touch it, you will end up sending it bankrupt. And that's the one thing you can't do is nothing.
It's like, okay, this is another discussion that came up with my friends over dinner. I am sick of being part of the generation that has to decide to be responsible. Like the generation that didn't get free tertiary education.
Yes.
The generation that has to sort of look at council rates and go, oh, the previous guys have kicked the can so far down the line. We're the ones that have to wear massive rates increases. We're the ones that aren't going to get access to the range of healthcare that previous generations enjoyed. And then when I get old enough, fuck knows if there's super there, or I'm going to work as a greeter for some American chain store until I'm 110.
Yeah.
Like, I work a retail job. It's not physically demanding or anything like that. There's probably a good chance that I'll get to retirement age, you know, and hopefully a decade or two past that. But there are people that work hard physical jobs, and you're going to tell them, you're going to tell a brickie that he has to work till 67. You know, there's a comment there that's gone past that someone's family or Māori that never got to retirement age. So the argument is for some boomers that, no, I deserve this because I paid into it. Didn't they pay into it as well?
Yeah, 100%.
Like
100%.
I've always thought that there should be some sort of way of people to claim early retirement, you know, for those physical jobs and stuff like that. God knows how that would work. But I don't think there's any adults looking at this seriously, because it seems like National's first idea out of the ranks is, oh, we'll just put the age up. Easy peasy. I'm going to live till 90. It's fine. They're not thinking of us. They're not thinking of the people that work those hard jobs, or the demographics that they are clearly happy to leave for dust because everybody's equal. Don't worry about it. There's no adult in the control room. The ship is just wildly veering from side to side, weaving its way through reefs and islands. And we decide whether to go left or right based on who's got the better anecdote. I spoke to a hairdresser that said that their business will triple in productivity if they can serve a cheeky shandy. You want to see that person? No, you don't know her.
Yeah.
You know, I speak to New Zealanders every day that know that their retirement age needs to go up. Who? Oh, I'm not going to show you.
Yeah,
please don't pay attention to this head of a major bank saying that we've fucked it.
That was such an obvious lie, in my opinion, that he just did. Let's wrap up with some super chats. Starfish says, it's Seymour saying an unenforced rule on drinking tea at the salon means we need a bill that broadly aims to overturn parliamentary sovereignty in favour of neoliberal reckons from him and his mates. Yep, very good. Arvid says, that's the wrong choppy I wanted for David Seymour. Chad says, current solution is make SIGs cheaper and healthcare worse to reduce the number of retirees.
Here's a question for you. That young lady washing and cutting David Seymour's hair, how many intrusive thoughts do you think she had while she was doing that?
Yeah, I wonder
because if I was her, I'd be sitting there going, I can find another job. I can find another job. It'd be funny to give this guy a reverse mohawk in front of the camera.
A buzz through them at all. All right, whānau, that's it for us for tonight. We're going to leave it at that. Sorry, I'm just getting our lovely new credits with our lovely new people on there, ready to go in the background. Is that working? Oh, it is working. And yeah, back again tomorrow night from 9. Remember, if you're in and around Auckland and you want to meet up, then Friday week, it's the 6th, 7 p.m, long room in Ponsonby, 114 Ponsonby Road from 7 p.m. If you're a patron, we're doing a patrons only meetup as well. All the details are on patreon.com/Big Hairy News. If you want to have a look there, you will find the answer. And that's it from me.
I'm quite looking forward to that, Pat.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it'll be like when you're a kid and you invite people to your birthday party and you don't know if anybody's coming. I think there'll be an part of that.
We'll get some
Don't
nice
stand
food,
us up.
have some
Don't
nice
stand
drinks,
us up.
just hang out and have a good time. That'll be what we do. That'll be what we do.
Oh, Pat. Stop the show. You said you had Goss from the Lockup and then you didn't mention it.
So, little birdie told me at the Lockup, right? So the Lockup is they go into the Lockup where all the analysts and all the journalists are. And remember, they weren't going to let the analysts in, but then they let them in. A couple of others they tried to keep out, and they were going to keep them out. And apparently the ballroom at Parliament is like boomerang shaped, so it's like that. And at the top of the boomerang is where the person always speaks from. So the person speaks from at the top, and there's like a galleyway there and a galleyway there. One of the galleries, one of the galleys is all the reporters. The other one is all the analysts. When Nicola Willis walked in, she turned sideways away from the analysts and she only took questions from the reporters.
I heard this.
She didn't take any questions from the analysts. And, the little birdie I was talking today was talking about, the guy from the New Zealand Initiative, really very friendly to them. Was it Brad Olsen? They all had their hands up the whole time. She didn't take a single question from the analysts. And she was picking out, like Thomas Coughlin from ZB, got questions, plural. She was picking out what she thought were friendly ones. I think she accidentally picked out a Māori TV reporter or journalist who apparently cut loose, and she obviously didn't answer the question and just kind of skated off. But that's the guy from the Lockup, Nikki No Boats. Because I said to a little birdie, what happened like when you were in there? Did you get a wave or a nod or was there anything? And that's when the story got told. She turned. He didn't say 45 degrees, but imagine him turning that way, so the analysts get the left shoulder the whole time, and so there you go. That
I have no trouble believing this, and I have heard it from another source, very similar story. So that's true. God's honest.
And this is my painting.
Chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, no one
I have nothing to add, Chewy, but I think you should do a hard sell right now on the regulatory standards bill and encourage people to go sign, because we haven't done that tonight.
Are you one of the 23,000 people that have already made a submission? If not, you are late. You are late, and you should go and do that right now. It doesn't need to be a book. It doesn't need to be the Western culture's best series of prose. You just need to say that you utterly reject this bill and think it's damaging for the country. If you know more about it, by all means, have at it. But just make sure that your opinion is recorded.
I concur.
You may go.
All right, team. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.